Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, May 21st, and we are going to be going over the ISD Top 50 for 2025 that Jamie released yesterday. He's been pouring over the film of not just Notre Dame prospects, but prospects all over the country to deliver his ISD Fab 50. It's always super accurate, if I may say. Always do a great job on that, Jamie. Good job by you. And it's very informative. So for me, it's like this is how I kind of gauge these things. It's one of those deals where, like, okay, Dallas Golden, number 46. Do I want him higher? Yes. But I'm not going to quibble over Jamie because I know Jamie's putting in the work and I know he's very good at evaluations. So I'm just going to take him at his word and we'll go for that. And I think everyone else should do that too. We're going to talk about the other Notre Dame prospects that made the ISD Fab 50. We're going to talk about a new commitment. Gordy Sulfad out of St. Xavier out of Ohio, defensive end prospect. We're going to talk about how Jamie projects him and how he adds to the 2025 class. That happened. And then we're going to finish the show with a little buy or sell questions for Jamie that I've got cooked up. Going to be some topics. I think one of them is going to get Jamie all fired up, and I'm very excited for that. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching our show, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is. We are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, Jamie, if you've tuned in to the last few shows, people know that ESQ Clothing is doing a very special promotion, again, for the Play Like a Champion today. Sport jacket worn by all the players on the player walk, worn by it could have been worn by Christian McCollum. I think he needs it. Christian was out with his son. I think he got his confirmation. Christian had an ESQ shirt on, bamboo dress shirt, looked amazing, was looking dapper with the family. Beautiful family Christian had, but Christian needs that sport jacket, and you can get that too for $495, marked down from $795. So many people were excited about it for the sale that they did for the weekend of the spring game. Ge extended it for the entire month of May, so you're going to want to get in on that. You're going to, if you're interested, send an email to Toerner@esqclothing.com. That's ATOERNER@esqclothing.com, or give them a call at 312-757-8500 to take advantage of that great special just for Hit and Hustle ISD subscribers. That's going to be 40% off a great sport jacket, Jamie. People really want to get in on that. So first of all, Jamie, there's comments in the chat. Jacob, the Canucks. He's sorry about the Canucks. They had a good run, especially for a team that wasn't supposed to make the playoffs. Where are you at, Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I mean, that's exactly where I'm at. Like, they weren't supposed to make the playoffs. Like, the previous management was horrible there, and the new management has done a really good job, kind of like supplementing some of the team that they had, and they definitely overachieved with a really good coaching staff and players, kind of like playing like kind of above expectations. And it's been a sad experience to be a Canucks fan for a very long time. And I think you got to appreciate when things get good. It was the first year in a long time that they were like fun to cheer for. So looking forward to kind of what they do ahead. I mean, I was already like going into it, into Game 7, and they had a couple of big injuries too, that they're missing guys. So no matter what happened in that game, I was like, well, they weren't even supposed to be here. So
right.
I was happy with the run, and thanks, Jacob, for that sentiment. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know what? Anytime you can get high leverage hockey, right? You'll take it, even if win or lose. You get to watch games that matter and games that everyone really cares about. Obviously, can't win them all, but they managed to get to that point. Like you said, weren't expected to get that far, so congratulations, Jacob. There was a question from Beefeater ND08. General question to everyone: am I going to need bail money for the Louisville game? are their fans that bad? I think what you'll find is the fans that attend games are fine, and the fans that are on the social medias, whether it's
Yeah.
like they're the
That's typically how it is. Yeah.
ones that are the normal people are not really on the Twitter. They don't. It's not really a thing. So I think everyone who bothers you, it's a social media bit. Generally speaking, I think the fans at these things are fairly they're fairly cool.
Yeah,
Usually.
CFP Hertz said too. Generally the fans that travel to away games to visit Notre Dame, like they
Yeah.
appreciate Notre Dame. They aren't really there to start stuff, and just I think it's been the experience of most people that that's not what visiting fans are like, except Michigan fans. But I mean they're their own brand.
It's different. It's different animal. Speaking of bail money, Jamie, someone was mentioning watching golf. I think it was, who was it last week in the chat, was watching golf. Scotty Scheffler, number one player in the world, gets arrested trying to get into the tournament. He's charged with a felony assault of a police officer. That was crazy. Most random thing I think you could imagine coming up on the blotter. What is there like a thing like random? It doesn't have to be football or anything. Like a pet peeve of yours. And it's like, hey, if we found out that Jamie was arrested for something, what would it be? What would it be? Something that's like it doesn't have to be anything, it doesn't have to be anything related to sports or attending anything. Because I have something.
I mean, that I would get arrested for. I don't know. I mean, probably like beating somebody up then or whatever. But I mean, I haven't been in a fight in many years.
I'll tell you what mine is. I'll tell you mine where I'm going with this. So in our neighborhood, we live very close to the middle school and then the elementary school. And there is like people just double parking to pick up their kids or drop off their kids. And there's spots available on the sidewalk, but poor little Johnny, he can't walk an extra 10 feet. We got to park right in front of the entrance and everyone's blocked. And he's got to go straight to the driver's side door. He's got to be right in front. You can't let him walk an extra 10, 20 feet because that's inconvenient for him. And like, if you're found like, oh, Greg's in jail. Oh, it's like, oh, someone must have double parked again. And Greg lost his mind because it just drives me insane. It's completely selfish. I don't want to inconvenience myself, so I'm going to inconvenience every other person in the line waiting to pick up their kids. And so that's the thing. That like getting arrested for random stuff, that if I'm ever, that it's going to be something like that. So I don't like it, Jamie. I don't like it one bit. People need to be more.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, people need to be more considerate. It's just that's the way society works. All right, Jamie. ISD Fab 50. Who wants Blay Burke wants love for Will Black and his 4940 laser this weekend. You've given love to Will Black. He is Notre Dame's highest rated recruit at number 33 in the ISD Fab 50. I know there's services like On3 has him like number 5 in the nation. The other services have him quite a bit lower. You're at 33, which is like for them right on the cusp of 5-star, however they want to do that. But what do you think of the 49040 for Will Black on the laser? And what do you think about him as a prospect? Why did you put him there? Why do you think other people have him, a little bit higher and not lower?
First of all, 4.9. Wow. I think, but not shocked by that. Anyone who maybe is shocked, you should check out Christian McCollum went and checked out Will Black and Matty Augustine and Ethan Long at a recent showcase in New England, where he's got a lot of great clips of those guys. And you can see Will Black move, and it is like astonishing for a big man, because he is all of like 290, 300. To move like that is insane. Is insane. And I mean, I was like, when he committed to Notre Dame, I was a huge fan of his, and I thought like, man, this guy's like I thought he was a top 100 guy right away, and he was like a 3-star then by everyone. Obviously, you know, I mean, I always respect when people go, uh, like go their own way and really like are bold with their rankings and stuff, because you know that's like how you feel. Like you shouldn't be following groupthink when you're talking about ranking. So you know, respect to On3 for putting him there.
For sure.
I mean, I certainly think he is one of the top tackles. I think he's a top 5 tackle in the class. You know, the reason I have him there, one, I mean, you just look at the athleticism, you know, that's obvious for there. I mean, he's got all like physical tools. He's got everything you want. He's got light feet. He's a guy who's like really like balanced and pass pro. He can move, get out. He's mean. He's just all these traits that he has are like, I mean, it sounds crazy because you're like, well, Joe Alt was just a top 5 pick, but he has very similar traits to Joe Alt. And there's a lot of reasons to that was my guy that I would compare him to, right? Is that I think that's the kind of player he could be, right? So from that perspective, it was kind of easy to rank him there. And I think just like the more that I've seen from him over time, I just like, well, he deserves to be in the top 50. And it just kind of worked out that he was like the highest guy for Notre Dame. And certainly, like, I mean, it is kind of insane to me that 24/7. Oh, not kind of. It is insane to me that 24/7 has him as a 3-star right now. But I don't know. I don't know if like I think Brian Doan is Don. I can't remember how he's pronounced his name, but I think he's their Northeast guy. So I don't know if maybe he hasn't seen him in person, and maybe that's what they're waiting for or whatever. But like, I don't know, pop on the film, man. He's 4-star by that standard, and you know, I think when you see him in person, probably going to put him even higher too. And I think one of the things too is that influenced me as well is like, you know, I'm influenced by what Christian saw and what Christian heard from some of the other coaches there. You know, very complimentary of Matty Augustine as well. And I got to tell you too, I think Matty Augustine is you know, very underrated too. So I think Notre Dame's got a couple of really good tackles from the Northeast, and Will Black I think is exceptional.
Yeah, like I think my perception of the offensive line and how they're doing recruiting wise is I think talking to you about, you know, Will Black and Matty Augustine and Owen Strabig, like I just feel like it's a top class, and I didn't really realize what kind of the rankings were, but it just seemed like the way that you guys talked about it, just like offline, you know, is I just feel like it's a really good group that they have, and so I'm very happy with it. Whether, you know, whatever 247 does with Will Black's ranking kind of doesn't matter. If you're going to talk about him and having Joe Alt traits, then and that's good, right? I'm going to mark that down as a good thing. So you know, it is it's a good thing for Notre Dame, and it's a good ranking for them to have. Deuce Knight comes in at number 35 in your rankings. Matt's blowing up the group chat saying he's not high enough, even at 35. So Matt's usually a pretty tough grader.
Yeah,
he said,
when Matt's hyping somebody up, I think it does perk your interest because Matt's always like like
Matt doesn't think anyone's good. It's crazy. If God forbid he ever has children, the kid's gonna be just on like the standard is gonna be tough. Matt said a similar thing about Ivan Taylor as well, which is interesting. Who we'll get in just 1 second. But Deuce Knight looks good. I'm gonna post some clips here. He did the spring. They called it the spring jamboree that they're taking place in over there in Mississippi, and I got to tell you, Jamie, he does look a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I think his. I mean, that's obviously great wide side of the field throw,
right?
Like on the money. You love to see that. So much of this is just like him, just like delivering the ball on time and getting it there accurately. I think there's a lot more polish to him as a thrower. I'm not saying that all of these, like that ball's obviously not perfect or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you see some of these throws and then some of, that's a big time throw. Obviously, you see some of these throws and some of the throws that he makes in 7-on, where it's like where the ball placement has to go to, first of all, like thread the needle in a throw like that. He has a big time arm, and I think that he's grown as a passer, and he still has to grow, certainly in terms of just overall mechanically and just consistency with his game. But when you add in the fact that, he's got this arm talent, he is absolutely the best athlete at quarterback in the class. Like, it's not even close, right? And he is a true dual threat, like the kind of guy who could change a game with one run, right? And there's just not many guys like that. And so that's why I think too, like, the off season isn't even the time for this guy to kind of blow up because he's looked good at 7-on, but he's not gonna go to the Elite 11 and be the best passer there. He won't be, right? Like, he's not gonna I doubt he's gonna win the accuracy challenge, or he's gonna have the best pro day workout or anything like that. I bet he'll look pretty good, but he just won't be like the top out of that. But you add in the athleticism element and the fact that he's, obviously getting better as a passer. That's why I kind of have him ranked there. The guys that, the quarterbacks that I have ahead of him are, they're more polished. I mean, I think that's very fair to say, right? Like, I would say Bryce Underwood too, who's the top guy for me. And like, I think he's pretty much the consensus top guy for everybody. He is, like, to me, like a more athletic Dante Moore, like he is, he's a heck of a prospect. And I mean, Julian Lewis, you kind of hope that, like, he doesn't end up at USC. He's taking a bunch of other visits. I mean, you could obviously see why he would go to USC with, Lincoln Riley's record quarterbacks, but the ball just comes out different with him. Like, he has, like, he's a special thrower. And then I think with, like, George McIntyre, who was like the other Tennessee guy, it was like him and Deuce that they were kind of like going after. George McIntyre his film is fantastic. Like, he makes some improv plays that are just like at a different level, right? And I just think that, like, those guys I would have, above Deuce for a reason. But, and I mean, I really like the Longstreet kid too, who's going to Texas A&M. But I mean, to me, I would put those three guys at the top, and then Longstreet and Deuce and kind of like that next tier. And then someone asked about Lagway. His arm is like, what I would say with him is, what's the guy's name? The LSU quarterback who ended up being a bust in the NFL, but he was
Jamarcus Russell.
He's got like Jamarcus Russell, like, holy, like, just wow. And there just are very few people in the world that will ever throw football like that. He's got just some stuff that he can do that, I mean, even Deuce, as good as some of these throws are, they're not the same. And then that's why I wouldn't put him there. And I mean, I'm not even going to compare Deuce to anyone specifically, because I think he's different, right? So it's like people are throwing out, Aaron Noland or Milrow. Like, why do I got to say he's not exactly like that? He's just different than them. He's just a great athlete, a tremendous, runner with the football, a guy who can break away, a guy who has the arm talent to make every single throw possible, the guy who shows that he can make throws into tight windows that are extremely, extremely impressive. And it doesn't really matter that he doesn't have to exactly be like someone else. He's his own guy.
I think there's a case you can make. You said he's the best athlete at quarterback in the class. He could be among the best athletes in the class regardless of position. I mean, it was what he can do in the long jump. I believe did he run a sub 4.5 40 laser? Was that him, like a 4.49 or something like that? I mean, just like, and with his size too, like he's just his athletic traits are among the top in the nation, regardless
he's
of
probably
position.
in the top 20 athletes in the class.
Yeah, I mean, just tremendous athlete. And for me, like we talk, you rank them because you have to be, right? It's a Fab 50, right? You rank them and you're using a certain type of criteria. I think for me, safe, and maybe, I guess I'm interested to get your opinion. Like, I think you can win, you can win a national championship with Deuce Knight, and like he can be the reason you win a national title, like national championship caliber, because of all the things that he can do, because of his throwing ability, because of his running ability. Like he can take over a game. He can be a complete game changer for you in terms of like, USC, when they played Notre Dame in 2022, like USC has Caleb Williams and Notre Dame doesn't. And that's the difference in the game. And I think Deuce Knight is that type of athlete, football player, period, where like, hey, Notre Dame has Deuce Knight. It's too much for anyone to overcome. And so they beat us, And like, I just think that that's where he's ascended to. And I think prior to, kind of the film we saw there, it was like, man, great athlete. What kind of a thrower can he be? And now you kind of see there was like, well, if he's going to start to make those kind of strides, what you said with the timing, I was very impressed with how he kind of knew where to go in the pocket, whether it was where his eyes needed to go or where he needed to scramble to, where to look when he was scrambling, right? Like he had a good sense of where the ball needed to be, where he needed to be looking in the pocket, very comfortable back there. And that's kind of, to me, the part where it's like, look, there's schematic things, or not schematic. There's technical things, where his feet are, getting his feet set, using more of his lower body, more of his upper body instead of just arm throws. Like that sort of thing can get worked out. I don't think they need to do anything with his actual throwing motion. I think it's fine. There's just, man, you see stuff like that, the growth that he's making, and it's like, whoa, this could be really something. So that's an exciting thing for Notre Dame, in addition to the quarterback room that they already have, right? Which is, we've talked about it a ton. Might be talking about it later as well. So kind of great to see from him. On to number 44, the next highest rated player in your ISD Fab 50, Ivan Taylor. We got film of him as well from his spring. And I got to tell you, Jamie, tell me this doesn't look just like Shane Walton moving around. Just like a bigger, probably more athletic Shane Walton, especially the stuff in the slot. I just think he moves just like him. And that's will take as far as prospects for Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always like when you can compare to some of these guys that people, Notre Dame fans remember and think fondly of. He's faster than
for sure. But I'm just looking at the way his body moves. Like,
yeah, he's got that kind of like stockiness, almost like that hunch a little bit too. Right?
Yeah.
There is something about the way he just moves and even tackles. It's like reminds me of Jay Walton. I think that's a good. So in that way, that's a really, really good call. I think what you see with like all this too is exactly why he is one of the top recruits in the country, and one of the guys who I think is one of the most valuable defensive backs that in the cycle period, because he can play outside. He can man cover a receiver outside. He can play nickel. He can play deep. He can come down and play in the box. He can be single high, right? Like he has obviously the intelligence, the instincts, the athleticism to have the range to cover a ton of ground. I think the one thing too is that like he's obviously not a big guy. He's like 5'11", right? He's 5'11", and he's probably for about 180 pounds right now. And he might not ever be like a guy who's huge, right? And that's probably why. Like, if he was Kyle Hamilton's height, he would, it would be like ridiculous. But even with that, he doesn't have like, the ridiculous arm length and all this kind of stuff. He's still just an elite prospect and an elite athlete, right? So I think he's a guy who's going to play early, very early at Notre Dame, and like he might even be a guy who is the nickel in 2025. Like I think that is on the table, because there's a lot of like, just you can just see his intelligence and the way he diagnoses things and route recognition, and you throw that together with athleticism. That, I mean, it's very similar to like what you see with Sean Crawford, and he's like a bigger Sean Crawford.
Yeah, and bigger Sean Crawford. The versatility there, it could play any type of position, and the thing is, they have that in Dallas Golden as well, and that's what kind of makes it. That's when your defensive backfield starts to get like super elite, where you have multiple players who are like top of the line prospects. Like the next person is Dallas Golden at 46. And we've talked about his versatility all the time. Maybe his best position is safety. Ivan Taylor's best position might be slot. You still have Ethan Long, who's like hence the name, like long athlete, right? I can really cover ground. He's a good athlete. You have Creed Thomas, who's a big guy. There's a possibility of adding Mark Zachary to the class on the 25th, which is Saturday. Like what they have in the defensive backfield is just kind of. When has Notre Dame ever been in this position recently? Like it just hasn't been, and it's really good to see. And you can see all these guys. Usually there's a kind of a tier to this sort of thing where it's like, hey, here's your headliner, and then here's your complementary pieces. Notre Dame's got could have 3 headliners in the secondary for their defense, and that's really good. Mentioned Dallas Golden. Everyone knows how I feel about him. He comes in at 46. Also had spring game stuff. I thought defensively he was very much in spring mode, not really bringing his shoulder and body, with the fervor. But he's also playing running back. He's playing in the slot. He's playing wide receiver. He's doing a ton for his team, and he's obviously we love him as a player.
Well, I think to me too, you said like you think I was too low on him or whatever, right? Like you would have him higher. But one of the reasons why I don't have him higher is because that was one question for me, is him as a tackler. And it's not just based on the spring game, but like he does not have a lot of film of him tackling well. So that is going to be a question. And I know he's going to play corner. I have no doubt he has the athleticism, the ball skills just to be fantastic. And I mean, look at the ball skills there.
Right.
Like, this guy is a fantastic athlete, but you got to tackle. Like, you got to be able to tackle. And it's like, if I'm going to say like what separates him, it's that. And I think, that's one of the things that I think that, you want to see that kind of being developed. And I think that's even a thing with like Ben Morrison, right? Where if you're saying like he is an exceptional cover corner and so good at just making plays on the football in phase, and can play press man, can play off, can do all of these things, and has tremendous instincts. But the one thing I would say, he's not a bad tackler, but he's just like average, so where's Golden at as a tackler? That's what I kind of want to see. But the thing is that he could play so many different positions that and why I do think it's the proper thing to have him be listed as an athlete, because I know they want to play him at corner or whatever, but like he really could play multiple positions. And I'm not discounting that he could play offense, right? Because he just has the skill set to like be great there.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly too, we got to see how they close out the class at receiver, but like right now, I'd say would be by far the best receiver in the class if he was playing if they were projecting him to receiver, and that's just one of those things where just it's uncommon. It's uncommon to have someone like that.
He's, in my opinion, if they kept him, if they said, okay, you're playing defense, period, right, and you're going to be corner, you're going to be safety, or whatever you're going to be. I think when you take him out of the context of like, you're also going to be a running back and a wide receiver and whatever he's doing for his high school, I think you would see him then be like, okay, I'm going to excel at all aspects of that position. What and speaking specifically as tackling, like, I think now it's like, look, I have all these other things going on. I don't need to be going crazy, especially in the spring, lowering my shoulder and hurting myself or doing whatever. Like, he doesn't need the pounding because he's responsible for so much. So I'm not worried about it, but just for him, the versatility we talked about, the versatility with Ivan Taylor, versatility is key in your secondary. And if you want to hire a media company who you have so many things that you want to be good at, you want a media company that's versatile, that can handle a number of different projects and things for you. And if you're looking for that kind of versatility, then you want to go to VSR Media Company, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Jamie, that's the ISD Fab 50. Great job by you. You'll be revisiting throughout the year. And then is there anyone, let me ask you this. Is there anyone who Notre Dame either commits or prospects who are kind of on the cusp of making the Fab 50 you're monitoring as the season goes on?
No commits. No commits. I mean,
prospects.
So that's
like Mark Zachary might be one who.
Yeah, Mark Zachary's in my top 100. Man Ferrermo's in my top 100. You can check out I listed because someone had asked for it before. You know, can you list like your top 100 in the thing? So I put it in the comments. But like those guys in particular, I mean, Derek Meadows is not in my top 100. He's just like outside. He's a top 150 kid for me, but like he easily could be top 50 by the end of it. You know, like I think
Nathaniel Wusu-Boateng is 50.
He's 50. He's 50th. Yeah. But if you look at it and whatever, and I mean, we don't have to go too deep into this. It's like, I mean, Notre Dame it's not even in the mix of any of these guys for the other guys who are in the top 50 and not many guys that are in the, you know, there's probably like 5 top 100 guys that, you know, they have a shot at, and, you know, that could kind of move up from there. And, you know, and I don't think there's a Bryce Young type that I see kind of moving up, you know, out of the guys that aren't. Although I do think like Joseph Rafe and Matty Augustine are guys that I think could maybe come close. Like I could kind of see that happening. But there's not too many other guys. Like, I mean, Burgess, I know, is kind of like he's ranked up high. Like he's like he's a top 50 kid by Rivals. But to me, he's not, I don't have him close to that. Like I think he looks good in camp stuff, going through drills and stuff. But I just his film, I think he's very raw. You know, he's got a lot of work to do. So, but you know what I mean? Sometimes that kind of just clicks. And then all of a sudden, I think if maybe he's like playing, if they use him properly in his high school's defense, he's a guy that I think could, you know, have a chance to kind of move up quite a bit. And I'm interested to see. He seems to be like I mean, I'm not big on the guys like sharing, like, oh, I'm always sharing clips of me like working, I'm doing the work or whatever. I'm like, you don't have to share that, but that's today's day and age with social media. But I mean, I'll say this: sure seems like he's working hard to get better, so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Nick Dean asks, what are your thoughts on all the 3 stars Notre Dame seems to be getting? Should Notre Dame shoot for more 5 stars? And kind of with that, Jamie, we'll kind of put this in with the commitment of Gordy Sulfad, defensive end out of St. Xavier in Ohio. He committed over the weekend. Not a lot of didn't see it coming. Not a lot of buzz around something like that, a move like that being made. I know you compared him to Ade Ogundeji. What do you like about him? And then we'll get into the kind of other stuff in a second.
Yeah, I mean, I was very, because like you said, he was not a guy who was really on the radar. He's
Right.
a guy who plays. Obviously, you see him at tight end here, and I believe Ohio State was recruiting him at tight end. A couple other programs were recruiting him as tight end. So he's a good athlete. Like, he's a good athlete. He's a basketball player, and if you watch him play basketball, first of all, it's funny with the Austin Rivers thing, with everyone talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of check out a lot of like NFL scouting reports and how many guys are top picks that were also played basketball in high school. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a high percentage of guys, right? Because I think what you see from that last play too is reactive athleticism, right? Like just being able to move laterally, do these kind of things laterally that is needed to finish, and as a pass rusher, as someone who can, get someone on the ground, right? Like chase someone down, because that's the name of the game. Like, pressure's great. It is very, very great, but like, you want to be able to get someone down. You want to be able to make a tackle in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like, I mean, does a nice job setting the edge. He uses his length well. First of all, Notre Dame, I believe, projects him to be like a 3 tech, which I could easily see, right? Like, he's 250 pounds right now. And I believe like part of the reason here, I mean, look, he's a straight up a nose right there, right? And winning there. And watch his play here. Just motor, just him chasing down.
Yeah.
His play, just keep going. Like, love that. And that is a huge thing. That is the one thing that stood out. His motor. I think he's got good twitch. I don't think he's not like a traditional, like, I think he could end up being like a 275-pound end that could play there and like set the edge well, and then kick inside and rush on third downs. I think that's possible because he's got that kind of frame and he's got that kind of lateral movement that, he could do that. And I don't think he's like where Mills. I don't think Mills, if like you get a guy in space with Mills, and that's one of the reasons why Mills' TFL numbers aren't great, because you don't see him like be able to finish. Because if it's like one-on-one with a guy in space, he's just not that guy who's going to win that most of the time. That's not what he's best at. Where I think this kid is a better reactive athlete than him, so that can go a long way. But I mean, easily too, I think he could play, inside and, gain that weight and be very good. And I mean, the more I watch him, the more I liked him, and I watched, not just his, huddle stuff. I watched like a couple, game stuff from him too.
Right.
And like, and I really, really, really liked him. I think, he was a guy who's like a pretty good offer list, certainly, like, I mean, a ton of Power 5 offers, and like, Wisconsin, Iowa, Miami was another one for him. Like, so it's not like he was just like having Midwest programs after him. But I think he's, probably like a little bit underrated, and to me is like a low 4-star type of kid. And he's also another kid that I think could rise. So when we're talking about, with Nick Dean, who had the question about those 3 stars too, like, I think he is someone who's like projectable to move up, and I think it's like a um, I like the pickup for Notre Dame, and um, I would say like it's fair to kind of criticize, and I don't know if we want to go into the. Do you want to go into that buy or sell now, or
Yeah. Well, just in a second, but finish the thought that you were gonna have.
yeah, like I think it's fair to criticize and be like, look at and just be like, man, there's a lot of 3 stars here or this or that or whatever, right? Um, but I I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't totally matter because traditionally it is a good thing to have more 4 stars and whatever. And certainly, like if I'm looking at the ISD Fab 50 and I'm looking at the top defensive linemen there, I mean, Notre Dame doesn't have anyone in the class that I would put in the tier of the guys there, right? Like the closest I would say is Joseph Riff is to me is would be
Yeah.
the closest guy to that, and I think you want to have more of those guys who because those guys can be like game wreckers, right?
Mm.
In saying that, I think Notre Dame has done a good job of like finding guys with traits, with translatable traits. And I've done like a lot of like work and like study in terms of like what what translates to the next level in terms of like I said, with the basketball and like vertical and some of like the testing numbers and like what do certain guys who become top NFL prospects have in common, whether they are 3 star, 4 star, whatever. I don't care what they ended up at the end of college, wherever they're ranked, and just a lot of these guys have these certain traits in common, and I mean Notre Dame's getting a lot of those guys, so I think that's a good thing.
I think, especially when you see how Notre Dame wants to use him, it's like 3 tech, right? If Notre Dame wants him to be a 3 tech, then like I think everyone sees him at defensive end. So like that's how he gets evaluated. It's how like there's a guy who is like, well, we don't know what he is. So he's like, if you're an athlete, it's like Dallas Golden kind of falls into this a little bit. So
Yeah,
he's outside the top 100, but it's like, but because people don't know what to position to evaluate him at, so it's like you always drop for that. And I think
yeah,
when you get a guy like Solstead who is like, okay, he's a defensive end. It's like, well, people evaluate him there. It's like, well, no, Notre Dame's looking at him for a completely different position. They want him inside. And so then it's like, okay, now you kind of get it, right? You kind of get what they're going for. I like that you said Riley Mills because when I watch him, I think, man, he kind of moves around like Riley Mills does. And maybe he's a little bit twitchier, right? Like maybe he's got a little bit more juice inside, can be a little bit more explosive. People want him at tight end. So that's a good thing. So I think it's kind of good context for what Notre Dame is wanting to do there.
sorry,
So
just to interrupt
go
just
ahead.
the one point, just to build off of what you were saying in terms of like how where guys are ranked and how they're projected and stuff too. So like Howard Cross is a perfect example. I mean, he's listed on some sites as like SDE, like strong side defensive end. It's just
Yeah.
like this, and I there were some people who were like, yeah, well, how's he going to be a defensive end? It's like, yeah, he's not playing defensive end, guys. Like he is not going to be defensive end. And I realized he was smaller then and all that kind of stuff, but he was still 6'1", and he wasn't going to play defensive end. He was always going to be a defensive tackle, and it was always going to be about how he physically developed and all this kind of stuff. And he had all these other things. If you watched his film, I mean, he was just a phenomenal high school football player too. But like, it's where you project those guys to kind of end up at, and sometimes too, like I think there's especially with edge guys or like edge guys who kind of move inside or guys who are like linebackers, like tall, lanky linebackers that end up being uh, edge rushers. And I know it's like kind of going back to like the Jimmy Johnson days, but that still happens today. That still happens today, where it's like, this guy's just an athlete who has the length and he has the twitchiness and all this kind of stuff. And it's about like developing him here, because of course you want to get as many of the guys that are just like the no doubt guys that have all these traits and already play that position already. But I think people would be surprised by how many like guys were like safeties or high school quarterbacks that end up getting drafted as linebackers who are, and that just happens. That's it's very common.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to buy or sell here. Buy or sell is going to be brought to you by Bend Marketing in South Bend. If you're ready for a new website but not sure where to start, let the experts at Bend Marketing help. With experience in working with Fortune 500 companies and small businesses alike, they'll build you a stunning website and take care of all the marketing tasks so you can focus on running your business. No more stress. Just leave it to the experts at Bend Marketing. Visit bendyourmarketing.com/ISD to get started. Don't forget to mention ISD to enjoy 10% off your first project. That's something for you to buy. Is something from Bend Marketing and get your website set up. You can buy on that, and so you buy them, and they'll sell your website. All right. Let's go to the first one. Kind of in this vein that we were just talking about, Jamie. Very topical, right? And I think there's been a lot of chatter about defensive line recruiting this cycle, and kind of looking at past cycles as well. Buy or sell? Notre Dame is struggling with D-line recruiting. What say you, Jamie Uwiyama?
No, I don't think they're struggling with defensive line recruiting. I think that it has been, it hasn't been where I think most people want it to be, which I think is totally fair.
Yeah.
Because everyone always wants that. They dream of the one. Remember when Notre Dame signed Ishak and Aaron Lynch and Stephon Tuitt in that 1 year? I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this D line, this pass rush. Oh my gosh. And then it never happened again, ever. And it's never even come close to that. Of course, people want that. And frankly, too, like, that's what they should shoot for, right? But I really just think that I can't think of a defensive line coach that was going to come in and just going to be like, they're going to do that and land all these guys. Because if I look at, like, if I'm looking at all the top, defensive linemen from this class, right? So Georgia, like, okay, stop me again. Another guy's like a linebacker / Georgia, Texas, Illinois, but is it that Iose Epineza, who's like a Iowa legacy guy, is probably going to go to whatever. So, and I don't know why Notre Dame never offered, but I don't know if he ever showed any interest. So, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Alabama. Okay, you get the idea.
Gotcha.
And whatever. And if you kind of keep going through, it's a lot of that too. And it's like Keon Keeley is like would have been the perfect guy. He's like, this guy's a Notre Dame kid. He goes to Berkeley Prep. And this is like the kind of thing that would be the perfect guy to get a Florida kid, right? To get one of those top guys. And obviously it didn't work out to get him. And until Notre Dame can go into those areas where it's like, guess what? You're going against all the top dogs in the SEC, plus like Oregon's throwing bags at these guys, Ohio State's throwing bags at these guys, all this kind of stuff. Until you can do that, you'll never be in the game with those guys, right? Like, it's just kind of how it is, right? And there's never enough elite guys in the Midwest, right? And if they are, it's a lot of it is like the Justin Scott last year, who's like, I mean, freak athlete, but like, man, this guy's got a lot of work, right? To do.
Here's a good example too of like 3 stars, like Keon Keeley, right? Like 5-star, everyone wanted him. Everyone wanted Keon Keeley, right? Who's the one who is like more likely to have a huge season next year? Him or Boubacar?
Boubacar for sure.
It's not
Keon
even
Keeley, I
close.
believe, is like third string at Alabama, right?
Yeah, like it's that, like that's the thing. It's like the stars matter for sure. Boubacar's looking like a dude. He looks like an absolute dude who everyone is excited about, on everyone's list to break out next year. That's the kind of the point. It's like the evaluations matter, fit matters, scheme matters, like everything matters. And so it's just kind of, that's what it is, man. Like, it's like you said, Justin Scott, like rated as highly as can be. Everyone wanted him. Notre Dame got Bryce Young. It was like, yeah, cool legacy guy. That's great. Now he's a 5-star. It's just,
Well, also too, that's an eval. And I know but they didn't just offer him because he was a legacy. Like,
for sure.
they offered him, he was their first offer. Like,
Yeah.
they offered him kids in camp because they were like, this guy is going to grow, and he hasn't even played edge yet, and he worked out as a defensive lineman here. And I mean, we think this guy's gonna be pretty good. And then obviously, like, he had like Alabama and like SC offer. So it wasn't like he didn't have the thing. It was just like the rankings were like late to catch up on him. And then eventually they did. So that's kind of where Notre Dame is at with a lot of
Sean Sevillano vis-a-vis Justin Scott, who, like, Sevillano, we liked him. Looked good in the spring game, right? Like, didn't expect anything from him. Mid 3-star guy, right? But it's like, for what you want him to do, it looks like they can have something there. Like, it's good player. So
okay. So I made a list of I think if you look at whatever, and I think Mike Elson was pretty mid recruiter. He was fine, above average, but it was like never. I certainly didn't land a lot of elite guys. So you have to remember too that, like, he kind of gets credit for some of the guys that Keith Gilmore landed as well. Just as a recruiter, he did a good job coaching. I'm not saying he was a very good coach. And I remember there were some like stupid people that were like, "Oh, this guy sucks as a coach," back like early on. And I'm like, no, he's a good coach. Like, that's not the problem. But if you look at, like, out of 19 guys who committed to him from 2017 on, and some of those guys are taken out because they weren't like his guys, right? But 11 of 19 were composite blue chips, which is like, not great, but like not bad either, right? And 7 were in the top 250, right? And if I'm going to include like just my things too, then I had 13 of 19, which is pretty good, right? Like, pretty good. And because I had Jamie Franklin, who ended up, obviously not being a good guy for Notre Dame. No, Chris, I have one of those things, and it just doesn't hook good on my on my thing. He's asking about a hands-free mic, so that's why. So you know what? I like the freedom. I like to move it around. Okay, but anyway, sorry about that interruption. But Myron Tagovailoa, who's multi-year starter at Notre Dame, so worked out okay. So if we're including with Al Washington right now, so 16 guys, including transfers, because those count too, right? So like RJ Oben and JJB count, and obviously like Chris Smith, he counts, right? Like, he wasn't a 4-star kid or whatever, but Oben and JJB were 4-stars, and obviously those are like significant additions. So if you include the transfers, it's 9 of 16, which is basically like the same percentage as Elston. was doing. So you're like, oh, whatever. But if I'm just going based on what I had, like I have 13 of 16. Also, five of those that were actual recruits. 5 of the 7 recruits that were in the top 250. So it's a higher percentage of top 250 kids. But 13 because I have guys like Mullen, Saviano, Solstead, and Mookum were 4 stars for me, right? So I think he's doing a better job, and it just has found guys who and finding these guys who are more projectable. Also, like let's see where Solstead and some of these guys finish up as well. And I'm interested to kind of see what it looks like at the end. And no doubt, like I think like there's guys that I'm like, oh man, if they could have just got this guy or this guy, like that would just change how you view it. And so like Dom Hulak, who I consider an edge in this class, when I count it as like a 3-star, it's like, and I have the 3-star too, but like he could very well move up and be this guy because he's a guy who was like, he's got a 79-inch wingspan and he's like a very, very good athlete, but he plays like multiple positions and all these different things where you don't really see him as an edge. It's like, well, what is he going to look like if he's an edge this year, which sounds like he's going to line up there more this season. So that is the kind of thing that's going to determine whether or not, like, where you see it going forward. And I'm not saying that like, you'd like to not see Notre Dame do better on with defensive line recruiting, but I mean, struggling is a stretch for me.
Yeah. And I think that's been kind of the sentiment. And I think we get too reactionary in terms of like in the moment, like when it happens, because there's, like you said, there's so many moves that get made in the rankings to the extent that matters at all later in the year when these guys have senior years and they can actually show, some growth or whatever it may be. So I think, just kind of the data you put out there, I think they're doing a lot better than is the perception, but also like there is the reality that they've always struggled getting those kind of like those big time interior edge guys, right? Where it's just like that's been the case for Notre Dame for a very long time. This isn't anything new, but I think they've done a good job of kind of the interim, right? And just like getting guys in who are projectable, getting them onto the NFL and doing a good job, or being very good college football players like Howard Cross is a perfect example of that. Myron Tagovailoa is a good example of that as well. All right, one more. We only have time for one more buy or sell. We're going to have to move a couple of these over. Buy or sell. Notre Dame is championship caliber at the skill positions. And I am going to include corner and secondary in this as well, because those are still positions. So looking at all of the kind of the skill spots, offense and defense. I think the previous one we're struggling in D-line. We're selling that. I'm not. The only question that I have is wide receiver. I think they are absolutely championship caliber at quarterback. I think they're championship caliber at running back, tight end, corner, and safety as well. Wide receiver is the big question mark to me, and it's a pretty big question, right? It can cost you. It can cost them a championship, right? It absolutely could. So that's my question, kind of where I come out there in terms of, I think the only question is wide receiver. A, do you agree with that? And B, what do you think about wide receiver and whether they are or aren't championship caliber?
Yeah, I mean, because of the receivers, I mean, I would have to sell at this point. And it's
okay.
They could maybe, prove me wrong, children, prove me wrong. But like, I just think that like, as it stands right now, they lack an elite guy. that really can be like that kind of like, well, guess what? This guy's going to be um, that Derek Mays type, the guy that you're like, we're going to go and like, we're going to roll in a big game. We know who's showing up today. Derek
Yeah.
Mays, right? They lack that. Maybe Jaden Greathouse is that. Maybe, right? And if he does become that, then obviously that changes, right? Maybe another guy becomes that. But as of right now, I think what you would need for that to happen, because I really like the backs. Obviously, the backs
Yeah.
are really, really exciting potential. But like, I would say that there's a chance that Mitchell Evans could be, man, really jump up and like even coming back off the ACL and be like, man, this guy's even better than he was last year, and be like, well, he's up going to be a Mackey finalist. He is that guy and more, as like being like a guy like teams have to worry about. Teams have to be like, I mean, we can't just stick anybody on him. We don't have it because certain teams won't have people that can cover a tight end like that, and they'll have to pay extra attention to, and that obviously opens things up on offense for Notre Dame. But you have to pair that with at least one other receiver, and if you don't, that isn't championship caliber to me. Like I just because if you look at kind of who they would have to beat to do, to get there, you're going to play teams with elite secondaries like Notre Dame's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the guys who can win in man coverage, then it's just awful tough to get to championship level. And I think that's really that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, you just wish there was like a little bit, just like one extra player on offense that was like proven this guy's a problem, right? Like Chase Claypool in 2019,
Yeah.
or even Miles Boykin. Because here's the thing, like we heard Jaden Greathouse had a good spring, but it wasn't like you heard about Chase in 19 or Boykin in 18.
Well, I mean, I saw those guys. I
Yeah.
saw it happen, right? So like, and I saw Greathouse, and it wasn't like we didn't see. I mean, we had less access now than we had back then.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like Greathouse didn't look very good when we saw him, but he didn't look like that where it's like, oh my gosh, like Claypool's like basically dunking on Troy Pride left and right.
Yeah.
And Boykin is like, Boykin was doing so well in spring and fall camp that people were like, is Julian Love bad now? And he was a freaking All-American. He was still great.
Yeah.
And he is still great in the NFL. Like, so that's how good those guys were.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not there yet. And that was always, and different things to changes. Some guys, it happens at different times, but just put it this way, those guys kind of had moments in games where it was like obvious that was translatable. And obviously that was the one thing with like Equinemius St. Brown is you never saw that level in practice where he was like at that level. I mean, Will Fuller, you just saw it. Like it was that kind of thing too. I would say too, like Torrey Hunter Jr. was close to that at his best before he got hurt. Like
in 16.
Like he really, really, man, it's super unfortunate. But like, and Stefferson, obviously it's just a wasted talent. But you look at some of these other years where it's like Kevin Austin, and obviously he had the injuries and the suspensions and all that kind of stuff. And he always looked good in practice. Never looked bad, but he never was like, oh my gosh, Kevin Austin, like no one can just do anything with him. He was never at that level. And then obviously he didn't play at that level. He was a good player. He just was never at that level. And really kind of that's what's kind of missing. And I think, you can call some people gamers or whatever, but usually when guys are that good at that level, you're doing it every day. And
Yeah.
it's just, and it doesn't matter that Ben Morrison's covering you.
Yeah.
Because you are going to get stuff on Ben Morrison. So if I see Great House going up against Ben Morrison, and I know Great House is working kind of all around and stuff too, but if I see Great House and it's like, oh my gosh, he cooked Ben Morrison here or whatever, because when's the last time Ben Morrison got cooked by anybody?
Right.
Right. So when you start seeing that kind of stuff, then I think, throw it at, throw the coal in the engine, get the hype train rolling. Like it's then I think you can do that. But before that, you got to kind of, it's a wait and see.
It is. I mean, I will say it is impressive that I think Notre Dame is at that level at every other skill position, though, and it's been a while. And I think honestly, they're set up to be that way for a good amount of time as well. Like, there's no reason to think this is a one-off. Like, there's a lot there, something to build on. But I agree. I think it's a sell at this point, just because of the receivers. Maybe Bo Collins, right? Maybe Bo Collins comes in and he's just been biding his time, and he comes in and starts dominating people in the fall. And that'll be something to monitor. But we're going to end it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please hit the like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is. We are going live. We'll be back on Thursday with more Notre Dame football talk. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.